There's something almost absurd about Jeff Bezos when you really think about it. The guy started selling books out of his garage and ended up becoming the richest person on the planet. Built a company that changed how we buy everything, how we read, how we watch TV, even how businesses run their servers. And he did it by being relentlessly focused on one thing that sounds simple but turned out to be revolutionary: customer obsession. Not customer service, not customer satisfaction. Obsession. That distinction matters because it explains everything about how Amazon grew and why Bezos became who he became. He was born in 1964 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His biological father left when he was young, and his mother remarried a guy named Miguel Bezos, a Cuban immigrant who'd come to America alone as a teenager. Miguel adopted Jeff, gave him his name, and by all accounts was a real father to him. The family moved to Houston when Jeff was a kid, and that's where he started showing signs of what was coming. He was obsessed with space, with science fiction, with taking things apart to see how they worked. He rigged an alarm on his bedroom door to keep his siblings out. He turned his parents' garage into a laboratory. These weren't cute kid hobbies, they were early indicators of someone who thought differently. He was brilliant in school, valedictorian of his high school, got into Princeton. He wanted to study physics, be a theoretical physicist, do the kind of work that explains the universe. But he hit a wall. He's talked about being in a quantum mechanics class and realizing there were people in that room who thought about physics in ways he never could, who saw things he couldn't see. It was humbling, maybe the first time he'd encountered something he wasn't the best at, so he switched to computer science and electrical engineering. Graduated in 1986 and went to Wall Street. He worked at a few firms, did well, made good money. He was a quantitative analyst, building systems, finding patterns, the kind of work that suited his brain. By his late 20s, he was a senior vice president at a hedge fund called D.E. Shaw. He was successful by any normal measure, making six figures, on track for more. And then in 1994, he came across a statistic that changed everything. Internet usage was growing at something like 2,300% a year. He'd never seen growth like that, and he understood immediately what it meant. Something huge was coming, and if he didn't move fast, he'd miss it. He started thinking about what to sell online. He made a list of products that might work, things that were commodified enough that people wouldn't need to see them in person. He considered software, office supplies, music. He landed on books. There were millions of books in print, way more than any physical store could carry. An online bookstore could have infinite selection, at least in theory, and books were perfect for shipping, lightweight, and standardized. He took the idea to his boss, who told him it was a good idea but better for someone who didn't already have a great job. His boss was probably right, from a pure risk minimization standpoint. But Bezos couldn't let it go. He talked to his wife Mackenzie about quitting and starting this company. They'd only been married a year. She was all in, didn't hesitate. They packed up, left New York, and drove across the country to Seattle. Why Seattle? Because it had a strong tech talent pool, and it was close to a major book distribution warehouse in Oregon. Bezos was thinking about logistics from day one. They rented a house, and Bezos set up shop in the garage. He raised a little money from his parents, about $300,000, money they couldn't really afford to lose. His dad has said he didn't have much faith in the business itself, but he had faith in Jeff. That's the bet they were making. Bezos called the company Cadabra at first, but his lawyer told him it sounded too much like cadaver. So he started going through the dictionary, looking for something that conveyed scale, and started with a so it would show up early in alphabetical listings. He landed on Amazon, after the river, the biggest river in the world. The ambition was there from the beginning. This wasn't going to be a small bookstore, it was going to be everything. But first, it had to be books. The site went live in July 1995. It was basic, just a searchable database and a shopping cart, but it worked. People started ordering. The first week, they shipped books to all 50 states and 45 countries. Bezos was packing boxes himself, driving them to the post office. The growth was immediate and chaotic. They'd ring a bell every time an order came in, but pretty soon there were so many orders they had to stop because the bell was just ringing constantly. They were working around the clock, scrambling to keep up, trying to scale faster than seemed possible. Money was tight. They were burning through capital, and Bezos was constantly fundraising, pitching investors on this vision of online retail. A lot of people passed. Thought it was crazy, thought books were a terrible business, thought nobody would ever buy things without seeing them first. But enough people said yes. He raised $1 million, then $8 million, then more. And the company kept growing. By 1997, 3 years after launching, Amazon went public. The stock was $18 a share. Bezos owned 40% of the company. On paper, he was suddenly worth hundreds of millions. But he wasn't cashing out, he was just getting started. He told shareholders from the beginning that this was going to be different. He sent a letter explaining that Amazon would prioritize long-term growth over short-term profits. They weren't going to focus on quarterly earnings, they were going to invest everything back into the business. Build infrastructure, expand selection, improve the customer experience. Some investors loved it, some thought he was insane. Wall Street generally hates companies that don't show profit, but Bezos didn't care. He had a plan, and the plan required patience and capital and a willingness to look stupid for a while. The company started expanding beyond books. Music, movies, electronics, toys. If it could be sold online, Amazon would sell it. But here's what people didn't understand at the time. Bezos wasn't building a retailer, he was building infrastructure. The warehouses, the logistics networks, the recommendation algorithms, the customer service systems. Every dollar that went into that was an investment in something competitors couldn't easily replicate. Walmart could build a website, but they couldn't replicate Amazon's entire back-end infrastructure overnight. In 2003, Amazon was profitable. Not hugely, but enough to prove the model worked. And then the profits started growing. But Bezos never let the company get comfortable. He kept pushing into new areas, kept experimenting. He launched Amazon Prime in 2005, a subscription service that offered free 2-day shipping for an annual fee. People thought it was insane. Shipping is expensive, how could giving it away for free possibly make sense? But Bezos understood something crucial. If customers paid that annual fee, they'd be psychologically invested in shopping on Amazon more often. They'd want to get their money's worth. And he was right. Prime members spent way more than non-Prime members. It locked people into the ecosystem. Then came Amazon Web Services, AWS. This one was really weird. Amazon had built incredible server infrastructure to run its retail operation, and they realized they could rent that infrastructure out to other companies. It had nothing to do with retail, but it used the same skills and resources. Oz launched in 2006, and within a few years, it was huge. It's now the dominant cloud computing platform, and it's insanely profitable. It basically funds all of Amazon's other experiments. Netflix runs on Oz. Half the internet runs on Oz. It's one of the most successful pivots in business history, and it came from Bezos being willing to explore ideas that didn't seem related to the core business. He bought the Washington Post in 2013 for $250 million. Pocket change for him by then, but significant because it showed he was thinking beyond Amazon. He was interested in media, in journalism, in how information spreads. He's mostly stayed hands-off, but the Post has thrived under his ownership, gone digital first, grown its readership. He didn't buy it to make money, he bought it because he could and because he thought it mattered. And then there's Blue Origin, his space company. He founded it in 2000, kept it quiet for years, slowly building rockets and infrastructure. This wasn't a side project, this was the thing he'd dreamed about since he was a kid. Getting humanity into space, building a future where we're not confined to one planet. He's spending $1 billion a year of his own money on it. That's not a business investment, that's a passion project funded by Amazon's success. He said that Blue Origin is the most important thing he's working on, more important than Amazon. That's where his heart is, even if most people only know him for the retail giant. But let's talk about what it's like to work at Amazon, because that's part of the story too. The company has a reputation for being brutal. High turnover, intense pressure, a culture where you're constantly evaluated and compared. Bezos created a system based on metrics and accountability, where everything is measured and everyone is ranked. There are stories of people crying at their desks, of managers pushing employees until they break, of a Darwinian environment where only the strongest survive. Amazon disputes some of these characterizations, but enough former employees have told similar stories that there's clearly truth there. Bezos himself is famously demanding. He sends emails with a question mark, just a single question mark, which means someone screwed up and needs to fix it immediately. In meetings, he reportedly doesn't tolerate fuzzy thinking or bad preparation. If you can't defend your ideas with data and logic, he'll tear them apart. He's not cruel for the sake of it, but he has no patience for mediocrity. He believes that high standards are contagious, that if you accept less than the best, it drags everything down. That philosophy built an incredible company, but it also created an environment that a lot of people can't handle. There's also the criticism about how Amazon treats its warehouse workers. The lowest paid employees in the company, the ones who actually pack and ship everything, they're monitored constantly. Their productivity is tracked, they have quotas to meet, bathroom breaks are timed. There have been reports of people urinating in bottles because they can't take time to walk to a restroom without falling behind. Amazon has pushed back on these stories, improved some conditions, raised wages. But the fundamental structure remains. It's an operation optimized for efficiency, and in that optimization, humans become variables to manage. Bezos would probably argue that this is necessary, that you can't run a company at Amazon's scale without intense operational discipline. And he might be right. But it raises questions about what we're willing to accept in pursuit of convenience. People love Amazon because it's fast and cheap and easy. But that speed and convenience come from systems that push workers to their limits. It's a trade-off we're all complicit in every time we click that buy button. His personal life became a tabloid story in 2019 when he and Matt Kenzie divorced after 25 years of marriage. It came out that he'd been having an affair with a TV personality named Lauren Sanchez. The National Enquirer got involved, threatened to publish intimate photos of Bezos. Instead of giving in to extortion, he published the threats himself, called them out publicly. It was a power move, taking control of the narrative. The divorce cost him a quarter of his Amazon stock, about $38 billion worth, making Matt Kenzie one of the richest women in the world. To his credit, he didn't fight it, and she's since become known for her philanthropy, giving away billions to various causes. Bezos has been criticized for not being philanthropic enough, especially compared to Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. He's given money, sure, billions to various causes, climate change initiatives, homelessness programs. But relative to his wealth, it's not that much. He's not signed the Giving Pledge. He seems more interested in building things, in Blue Origin and his other projects, than in traditional charity. Some people respect that, think building companies creates more value than donations. Others think it's selfish, that someone with $200 billion has a moral obligation to give more of it away. There's no easy answer. He stepped down as Amazon's CEO in 2021, handed the job to Andy Jassy, who'd been running Oz. Bezos became executive chairman, which means he's still involved but not running day-to-day operations. He said he wanted more time for other projects, for Blue Origin and the Washington Post and whatever else interests him. He's 58 now, still relatively young, and he's got the resources to do basically anything he wants. He's dating a celebrity, flying to space on his own rockets, buying massive properties. He's living the life of someone with infinite money, which he basically has. But here's the thing about Bezos that's easy to lose sight of in all the wealth and controversy. He saw something coming before almost anyone else, and he built infrastructure to take advantage of it. The internet was going to change commerce, and he positioned himself to dominate that change. That took vision, sure, but also execution. Lots of people had the same idea. Lots of companies tried to do what Amazon did. They failed because they didn't have Bezos's obsessive focus on the customer experience and his willingness to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term positioning. Amazon's journey isn't just about one company growing big. It's about how technology changes everything, how infrastructure becomes competitive advantage, and how someone willing to think long-term can beat competitors focused on quarterly results. It's also about the costs of that growth, the people who get chewed up in the machinery, the small businesses that can't compete, the questions about monopoly power and worker treatment. Bezos built something unprecedented, a company that sells everything, delivers it fast, and has its hands in books, movies, TV shows, cloud computing, grocery stores, pharmacies, logistics, AI assistants. It's not just a retailer anymore, it's infrastructure for modern life. And that was always the goal. He wasn't thinking about being a bookstore, he was thinking about being the everything store. The books were just step one. The criticisms are real and worth grappling with. Amazon has crushed small retailers, contributed to the death of malls and independent bookstores, created working conditions that are hard to defend, amassed enough power that it can dictate terms to entire industries. Bezos doesn't lose sleep over this, or if he does, he doesn't show it. He believes in creative destruction, in progress requiring disruption. Old systems die, new ones emerge, and that's how civilization advances. You don't have to agree with that philosophy to acknowledge that he's lived it completely. What's striking is how consistent he's been. The 1997 shareholder letter, the one where he laid out his focus on long-term thinking over short-term profits, he's basically been executing that plan for 25 years. That's incredibly rare. Most CEOs cave to pressure, start focusing on the next quarter, lose sight of the bigger vision. Bezos never did. He stuck to the plan even when it looked insane, even when the stock was tanking, even when critics were writing Amazon's obituary. That kind of conviction is either genius or madness, and it's hard to know which until you see the results. The results speak for themselves. Amazon is worth over $1 trillion. It employs 1.5 million people. It's reshaped entire industries and created new ones. Bezos himself is worth something like $200 billion, depending on the stock price on any given day. He went from packing books in a garage to being the richest person alive. That's not just a success story, that's a fundamental reshaping of American business. But success at that scale comes with scrutiny, and Bezos has faced plenty. Congressional hearings about market dominance, questions about anti-competitive practices, worker strikes, protests. He's become a symbol of modern capitalism's excesses. The ultra-billionaire who has more money than he could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, while his warehouse workers struggle to pay rent. That's not entirely fair to him personally, but it's also not entirely unfair. He built the system, he benefits from it the most, so he bears responsibility for its flaws. He's also made space travel look achievable again, at least if you've got a few billion to spare. Blue Origin is launching rockets, taking tourists to the edge of space, working on systems for orbital flight and eventually lunar missions. It's slower than SpaceX, less flashy than what Elon Musk is doing, but it's real. And Bezos's vision for it is genuinely ambitious. He talks about moving heavy industry off Earth, about millions of people living and working in space, about preserving Earth by doing the messy stuff of civilization elsewhere. It sounds like science fiction, but he's got the money and the long-term thinking to actually pursue it. Amazon's journey is Bezos's journey, really. The company is an extension of his personality and priorities. The relentless focus on customers, the willingness to experiment and fail, the long-term thinking, the discomfort with complacency. It's all him. And now that he's stepped back from the CEO role, it'll be interesting to see if Amazon maintains that culture or if it drifts into something more conventional. Big companies tend to get bureaucratic, risk-averse, slow. Bezos kept Amazon from becoming that through sheer force of will. Without him in charge daily, it might change. His legacy is complicated. He's created enormous value, made shopping incredibly convenient, pioneered new business models, pushed technological innovation. He's also accumulated obscene wealth, contributed to worker exploitation, helped destroy entire categories of business, and concentrated power in ways that might not be healthy for society. Both things are true simultaneously, and which one you emphasize probably depends on your politics and your priorities. What's undeniable is that he changed the game. He saw the internet not as a place to replicate existing retail, but as an opportunity to build something completely new. And he had the vision, the drive, and the ruthlessness to make it happen. Amazon didn't succeed by accident or luck. It succeeded because Bezos was willing to outwork, outsmart, and outlast everyone else. He played a longer game than his competitors, invested in things they thought were wasteful, built infrastructure they didn't think they needed. And when the dust settled, he'd won. The garage in Seattle where he started packing books is part of mythology now, the same way Steve Jobs' garage is. It's the American dream on steroids, the immigrant stepfather, the Princeton education, the Wall Street success, the crazy bet on the internet, the overnight wealth. Except it wasn't overnight, it was decades of grinding, of betting everything repeatedly, of refusing to accept that the critics might be right. It's a story about belief in a vision and the discipline to execute it even when it seemed impossible. Jeff Bezos didn't just build a company. He built infrastructure for how we live now. And he got richer than anyone in history doing it. Whether that's inspiring or horrifying probably depends on who you are and what you value. But it's definitely one hell of a journey.